Yo, what's up guys, it's NLW here, back again with another video. Today, an action figure setup featuring my favourite Undertaker moments. This was requested by OG Hazard over on Patreon. If you'd like to request your own figure setup for me to make, head over to my Patreon. The link is in the description. Now, Survivor Series has been and gone, celebrating 30 years of The Undertaker, and what a long career it has been, from starting in the Golden Era, moving through the New Generation, into the Attitude Era, Ruthless Aggression, you name it. He has stuck around and he has been a presence on WWE for the past 3 decades. That is insane. So today, I'm going to go through some of my favourite moments, some of my highlights from his run in WWE. Along the way, I'm going to be showing you some of the poses in figure form, so without further ado, let's get into it. So let's go with a pose from his original debut in the WWF. His first big-time feud was against Hulk Hogan for the WWF Championship. Of course, tombstoning Hogan onto a steel chair courtesy of Ric Flair and winning his first WWF Championship, and he's more synonymous with being a face in the New Generation, but at this time he was a heel, tombstoning Hogan, but the title was held up in controversy. Of course, Hogan ended up winning it back, but this was just a sign of things to come, as later on we'd get The Undertaker finally being the WWF champion. Although along the way he had some bumps. He had a match against Bret Hart for the WWF Championship at the Royal Rumble, which ended in controversy. However, he finally won the title against Sid at WrestleMania 13. Wasn't a great match, and the title reign itself could have been better, but it was just the start of a long career, and many more titles were to be won for The Undertaker. Fast forward to Bad Blood 1997, the first ever Hell in a Cell match, facing Shawn Michaels, his bitter rival at the time. DX were not a factor in this one, however, his brother Kane was. Kane making his debut, ripping the cell door off in an incredible visual after an incredible match, and of course, this rivalry was born. Kane and The Undertaker battled in one of my favourite Mania matches ever at WrestleMania 14, and then later on, in 1998, we had the infamous Hell in a Cell match between Mankind and The Undertaker. Mankind getting thrown off the cell, again probably one of the most brutal matches in WWE history up until that point and probably since. And after Mankind, he moves into a feud with Stone Cold Steve Austin, and the matches they have, I think I'm quite fond of. You know, you got the one at SummerSlam, the Buried Alive match as well. A lot of people don't rate their matches together, but I think I've got a little bit of a soft spot for them. So he faces Austin, wins the title, and then Austin wins it back on Raw in one of the highest rated segments in Raw history, I believe. And going on from this, you know, around this time, he was with the Ministry of Darkness, so he's wearing the hood, he's performing rituals, he recruits the likes of Viscera and the Acolytes, and he's seemingly unstoppable. This kind of splits opinion, this gimmick, but I personally liked it a lot. And then his next gimmick was far from this incarnation of The Undertaker. We had the American Badass. And say what you will about the character, but the return was absolutely top-notch. Riding in on the motorcycle at Judgment Day 2000, all in denim, just beating the hell out of the Helmsley regime, chokeslamming X-Pac to hell, basically. And, you know, you want to talk about rejuvenating a character. I think it was a much-needed change. I think around this time, though, the denim Undertaker, it took some getting used to. I'd say it really peaked around 2001. I think that's when we got better Undertaker. But regardless, solid return, and his match against Triple H at WrestleMania X7, fantastic as well. The first real feud since he came back as the American Badass, where you thought, this guy is legit. And then, following on from this, turns heel, Big Evil is the hardcore champion in a great match against RVD at Vengeance, by the way. Kind of a hidden gem. If you've not seen it, go and watch that matchup. And then following on from this, you know, he faces Ric Flair at WrestleMania. Doesn't really do a lot after this either. He's the WWE champion again, but there's missing something there, you know. He's having his matches with Jeff Hardy and that. And then comes on to the Beast Incarnate, Brock Lesnar. The awesome Hell in a Cell, probably one of the bloodiest matches in WWE history. At No Mercy 2002, puts over Brock Lesnar in a big way, and this is kind of it for the American Badass character. He'd have another year onto him, but it wasn't really the same after the Lesnar feud. He had this big match and then kind of middled around in the mid-card for a bit, having a couple of boring matches, but then he returned as the dead man that we all knew and loved. He had a match against Kane at WrestleMania 20 and had a couple of naff feuds on SmackDown in 2004. Wasn't his best year in hindsight. However, he did put over a young up-and-coming star in the form of Randy Orton. WrestleMania 21 rolls around, a great WrestleMania in my opinion. The show was stolen by Angle Michaels, but I feel that Undertaker and Orton had a cracking match as well, and then their series of matches going into SummerSlam, No Mercy, and then the blow-off inside Hell in a Cell at Armageddon. I love this feud. It was one of the first feuds I was really exposed to growing up as a WWE fan, so that was top-notch. And another feud as well that I was growing up with is the one with Kurt Angle. Had the match at No Way Out, which is an absolute classic, and then probably one of the best SmackDown matches of all time against Kurt Angle. Of course, it ended in a DQ, but it was what it was. You know, Undertaker and Kurt Angle, and this was around the time that Undertaker started to show more of a wrestling side to his personality, because before, arguably his matches weren't the best. They were quite slow, quite plodding, quite boring, but he definitely stepped up his game in 2006 with matches against Kurt Angle, and you know what, he even got a decent performance out of the Great Khali, which is saying something. Then you move on to WrestleMania 23 and his feud with Batista, probably Batista's best feud in the WWE, over the World Heavyweight Championship. The match at WrestleMania, in hindsight, should have main evented, and then you've got the match at Survivor Series inside Hell in a Cell as well. So a great series of matches, also the Last Man Standing, how can I forget? So he's world champion now, but it always seems as though he's being cut under from his world title reigns, if you see what I mean. He gets the world title, he vacates it, he gets it again and he has to vacate it. It's such a shame, but his match against Edge at WrestleMania 24, the blow-off to their incredible feud, and then they had a match inside Hell in a Cell. You know, The Undertaker and Edge, they were synonymous with SmackDown in 2008, and it really gave a different edge to the, no pun intended, Edge character. So what would The Undertaker do after this? You know, he has great matches against Batista, great matches against Edge. How can he top it? Well, it's simple, folks. He faces Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 25. The best, probably one of the best matches in WWE history. I was in awe watching it for the longest time. It was my favourite wrestling match, period. And then they go on to have an even better match the year later at WrestleMania 26. Undertaker ending Shawn Michaels' career at WrestleMania 26 in a fantastic matchup. The emotion, the selling, everything was top-notch, and this was just the start of a run of insane WrestleMania matches for The Undertaker. The year after, he faces Triple H at Mania 27, no holds barred, quite brutal as well. Undertaker won that one, and then the year after, Hell in a Cell. You know, I can't think of someone who's had 4 consecutive Mania matches that were that good, you know, that high profile, and credit to The Undertaker, you know, he was getting old, he was injured a lot of the time, but he still managed to pull out a great performance at WrestleMania every year. And then you move on to CM Punk at Mania 29, and then finally the year after, he comes into contact with the Beast, Brock Lesnar, and unfortunately for The Undertaker, the streak has ended. But The Undertaker wasn't done with wrestling just yet, because he managed to redeem himself with some very great matches against Lesnar, both at SummerSlam, and then they had a match at Hell in a Cell, which was not as brutal as their No Mercy match. Of course, it was a PG setting, so how could it have been? But it was still very good, you know, you had great emotion in that one, the ring being ripped up, and the F5 on the hard wooden panels. Again, you know, the last kind of truly great matches, I think, of The Undertaker's career were against Brock Lesnar. And after that, it was kind of a law of diminishing returns. Faced Roman Reigns in a match at Mania that wasn't that great. However, I did enjoy, I will say, one of my favourite matches was against John Cena at WrestleMania 34, purely because I was there in attendance to watch it. It was short, it was what it needed to be. Obviously, Undertaker was training for a longer match, but again, it was what it was. And then the year after, he misses WrestleMania and does a couple of bad matches against Goldberg, but we won't talk about those. Let's just skip right ahead to his last match, at least his last match at the time of recording this, the Boneyard match against AJ Styles at WrestleMania 36. Cinematic masterpiece. Credit to them, they made the best out of a bad situation, and the drama in it, lack of a better term, you know, it's kind of tongue-in-cheek at times as well, but again, the way it was shot, top-notch storytelling as well. You had the Druids, you had The Undertaker's past coming back to him as well. Undertaker making AJ Styles look pretty good in this one too. I loved AJ Styles being this, you know, chicken coward who wants to get away from The Undertaker as much as possible. So again, top-notch stuff. And I'm recording this before Survivor Series for my Patreon viewers, so by the time this comes out on YouTube, he may have wrestled another match, he may not have, but one thing's for sure, The Undertaker's legacy in the WWE will not be forgotten. And I have to say thank you to OG Hazard for requesting this action figure setup. If you'd like to request your very own action figure setup, head over to my Patreon, the link is in the description. Like the video if you enjoyed, and leave a comment what is your favourite memory or moment of The Undertaker, leave it in the comments below. Like I said, hope you enjoyed the video, and I will catch you guys later.